the real estate agents really aren't your enemies. Now, I know sometimes they're a pain in the backside. I got it.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. Dustin Harris hanging out once again in the podcast chair. Want to pause and remind you that we're sponsored by a couple of great companies. Alamode, of course, is the software that I am using. Used it this morning. Use it every day. Alamode.com or 800-ALAMODE, and OREP Insurance. Very, very easy to renew with OREP, and they always find the best prices. OREP.org for more information. Want to welcome to the program, friend of the program, Mr. Brad Bassi. He will be my guest today. Brad, welcome. Thanks for coming on, my friend.
Hey, good morning, Dustin. How are y'all doing up there?
Very, very good, my friend. I'm so grateful to have you on. By the way, folks, if you listen to this program but don't watch the program, I highly encourage that you go to YouTube today, because Brad's wearing a cowboy hat. I mean, that's worth it right there.
It's the equivalent of your blue shirt.
I love it. I love it. Mustache and a cowboy hat. Yet you're out of Temecula, California, but you didn't grow up in Temecula.
No, sir, I did not. I was born in the Midwest. I was born in Missouri, and I was raised in a ranching community in a small town south of Kansas City in the Kansas area along the Missouri border.
Very cool. One of the things that Brad and I've chatted with a little bit over email the last little bit, and by the way, Brad's a member of my All-Star team, and he's been kind of following along with the goat farm that we've got going on up in Montana. It's been fun to connect with him on that. But Brad, just a quick bio on you: a bachelor's degree from Arizona State, MBA, pretty fancy, from Northern Arizona University. You spent a number of years in the corporate side of the world and ended up in appraising. 1992 is when you started. You specialize, of course, in high-end properties, horse properties, vacant land in Southern California. Welcome to the program, Brad.
Thank you very much, Dustin. It's an honor. I appreciate you having me here.
Let me set this up. We of course, on this program have been all over the Sitzer-Burnett case. For those that are not familiar with those two names, we're talking about the NAR settlement. So, folks, if you want to know a little bit more, go back to episodes, most recently 975. I've also talked about it in 961, 957, and 943. We've talked about what that means for realtors, and of course what that means for appraisers. Brad reached out to me after the most recent episode, 975, as we've talked about the NAR case, and had some really interesting things to share. And so I wanted to bring Brad on the program, talk a little bit about it. First of all, Brad, let's talk a little bit about the NAR case, the settlement, if you will, Sitzer-Burnett case. Do you find this as a negative or an opportunity for appraisers?
I see it as an opportunity. We don't really know all of what's going to happen yet, because the DOJ hasn't resolved all of their issues, and we're not sure when that's going to occur. But I see it as an opportunity, either from a consulting standpoint or actually from an appraisal standpoint. I believe there's going to be some situations there that the appraisers can help, because nobody knows what the buyers are going to be doing. If they've got to sign a contract and they don't want to sign a contract, maybe they're going to look to an appraiser to help do an appraisal for them in a particular market area, or ask them for consulting information. So I think there's some opportunity here for us.
Okay, let's set the stage a little bit. If people have not listened to the past cases, or they've been living under a rock, I hope not. I hope appraisers are up on this kind of thing, because I think it's super important to understand what's going on, not just in their local market, but in general. When it comes to buyers and sellers, and typically those buyers and sellers are dealing with agents, then this is kind of a huge deal. Do you want to kind of set the stage, Brad? We don't need to get into too much detail, but set the stage on what the Sitzer-Burnett case is, what the NAR settlement does.
Well, the cases, and I'm certainly not the attorney that was involved with this, but this kind of centers around all about the commission situation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's they found that that the NAR was colluding and that they were increasing property prices because of the high commissions that were being paid.
And not only that, just to clarify, we're not just talking about commissions on one side, but specifically the buyer side, right?
Buyer side,
And the
correct.
question is
Correct.
why should a seller, for example, be paying the commission on the buyer side?
Correct. And there was also the situation with having it listed in MLS, where the commissions would be set up there, and the theory was that buyers agents were only going to show properties to their buyer where the higher commissions was at. So that was some of the tie-in with this as well.
Got it. Yeah. No, that's a great setup. So you mentioned opportunity. I think a lot of appraisers, at least that I have spoken with, have seen this as either a challenge and or they were ignorant. And I mean that in the kindest way to my appraiser friends, but they just didn't know much about the case. So you're saying it's a potential opportunity. Talk to us about that.
Well, the way I see it is that if the buyers can't afford to pay, and let me back up for a second. The buyers are now going to have to sign a contract with their particular agent.
Okay.
Which I see that as a benefit for the buyer's agent, because a lot of agents have had to go through all sorts of insanity and show 400 properties and then turn around and have somebody's brother-in-law, who was an agent, just got their license, ends up taking over the sale, and they lose their commission. So they're not going to have to sign contracts. But if people look at that and they're like going, well, wait a minute, I can't afford, or I'm in Southern California, so I can't afford a $10 or $12 or $14,000 commission on a property. So now all of a sudden, what are they going to do? Well, they may need some help and guidance, and with someone that's in the real estate profession, i.e. an appraiser, who can take off their Stetson appraisal hat and put on their Stetson consulting hat. And you have to be very careful about that. You got to make sure that that all parties know that you're not doing work for them as an appraiser, you're working as a consultant. And because as a consultant, it's just a different scenario. You can look at things with a different pair of eyes and a different approach. So I really think that there may be some opportunities there. How are you going to get involved with that is going to be, do you have information out there on your website? First off, do you have a website as an appraiser?
Right. That's a good point. Let's start with that.
Yeah. Do you have a website as an appraiser? And if you do, then you need to modify it and, put together this is going to be a bunch of technical geek speak, which I'm not a website designer, but landing pages, things that are just, developed for specific areas on the specific types of properties that you specialize in. And one of the things that I've done in a couple of programs, a couple of presentations I've made, is I've always asked appraisers, what are you famous for? And kind of what's your niche?
Yeah.
And so people need to be aware of what they can help the buyers with and how can they assist them. And yeah, some of it, if they're going to do an appraisal, some of it may be a quick turnaround. But if you can get some information together for those people, the buyers, they may be looking to somebody for help on guidance that's not going to cost them an arm and a leg with large commissions if they're not able to do it.
Yeah.
So I kind of see that as an opportunity. And I recognize that some of the appraiser colleagues see the real estate agents as a much different picture than I do. Some of them, I kind of almost feel like they consider them the enemy.
Yeah. And I think that's unfortunate. And I want to dig into that in just a little bit, but let's back up just a second.
Sure.
You had mentioned a couple of things I just want to emphasize, and I think you're brilliant in your approach on this, that this, meaning the NAR settlement, can be an opportunity for appraisers if, first of all, they understand what's going on, and second of all, they see it as an opportunity and take advantage of it, right? Meaning,
yes.
And I don't mean take advantage in a negative way. I'm saying look at an opportunity and say, how can I insert myself into this situation and actually be a service, right? A value to a potential buyer. And as you mentioned, it can be done, with your appraiser hat off. I think got to be careful about that, right? Understand
exactly.
But I think you can do it with your appraiser hat on, right? Why not offer your services as an appraiser if they're going to go in and buy a $650,000 home? I, as a buyer, would want to know, is it worth 650,000? Just because it's listed for $660,000 on the MLS and I offered 650 and they accepted it, is it even worth 650? I want to know that. And I would want a professional to tell me that, and not somebody. And this is where I think it's great and a great opportunity for all people, not just appraisers, that this case now shines a spotlight, if you will, on what is it. And I got to be careful about how I say this, right? I love and respect my realtor friends, right? But what is it that a buyer's realtor, a buyer's agent did, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they didn't have a value, but part of their value was to help the buyer to make a good decision. But what
Correct.
better professional than an appraiser to help you to do that, right?
I agree. That's why I say there's opportunities either with the consulting hat or the appraiser hat on, depending upon which way you're looking at it. And in some situations, maybe the consulting hat is a better way to go, because you can talk to them about different neighborhoods and different price levels and, school districts and, access to the freeways. And, what used to be a 15-minute trip to the freeways now a 35 or 40-minute trip, depending upon where you're at. Mm-hmm. Especially for us, because where I'm at, it's more of a bedroom community, if you will, for people commuting to San Diego and Orange County and LA, Long Beach, those kind of things.
Yeah.
So, that's how I see the potential of it. And I think there's an opportunity there. But the appraisers need to take a look at this with a little bit of a different view than I think some of the appraisers have been doing.
Yeah. You mentioned just a little bit ago about sometimes appraisers see realtors as the enemy. When we get back from the break, Brad, I want to talk about that, dive into that a little bit deeper with you. First, I want to pause and remind you folks that we're sponsored by a couple of great companies. Speaking of California, Southern California specifically, great group of people out of San Diego. OREP Insurance, folks. I have been with OREP for many, many years. And one of the things I love about OREP is, first of all, they understand appraisers. They also are working RE Magazine, right? They completely understand the world that we're in. But secondly, they are brokers, meaning they go out and shop for the best price and the best deal, specifically for me, with my record, with my experience, with my situation, and they're going to find me the best price and the best coverage. They will do the same for each and every one of you. Check them out by going to orep.org. Go to their website, again, orep.org. A la mode. I've been using a la mode for almost 30 years. I started using it because my father, my mentor, used it for many, many years, and rest his soul. He used it till he retired. And I have dabbled in some of the other software out there, but keep coming back to a la mode, folks. It is the best out there. It's going to be a little bit more as far as an investment goes. But I use the word investment purposely because the value that you get back is incredible. If you're not familiar, or if you need to refamiliarize yourself with the software, please go to their website. That is alamode.com, or you can pick up the phone and call them and talk to a great salesperson. They'll tell you all about the software and the benefits that it can give you as a real estate appraiser. That number is 800-ALA-MODE. All right, folks, welcome back to the program. My good friend, Mr. Brad Bassi, on with us. Welcome back, Brad.
Thank you, Dustin. Appreciate it. It was interesting hearing you about a la mode, because you've been doing them a lot longer than I have. I just started with a la mode about 10 years ago in 2014.
Okay. You switched then. Interesting.
Yeah, I did. Well, the reason I did was because of their Total for Mobile app, because I wanted to get into that situation instead of screwing around with clipboards and everything else. And I know there's clipboard users out there, but it's made a big difference for me. And
they don't listen to this program, Brad. No clipboard users listen to this program.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, I hope you found good success with Alamo. It sounds like you have, if you've been with them for that many years.
I have.
Awesome. Well, they're a great sponsor here, and I appreciate the shout out to them. All right, Brad, we're talking a little bit, at least the launching today was talking about the Sitzer-Burnett case, the NAR settlement. Again, they're still working out the details. In fact, I'm in the process of selling a piece of ground right now, and it's interesting the conversations that I'm having with my realtor about, what can be mentioned in the MLS and what can't be. And she gave me a specific date that, okay, if we list it before this date, we've got to say this, and after this date, we've got to say something different. And it's interesting, but what keeps coming to my mind is one thing that I've mentioned on this program for many, many years, and you mentioned it earlier, Brad, is that with change comes opportunity, right? I love change because it brings opportunity. And you had mentioned sometimes appraisers might, okay, nobody in this audience, I'm sure, but might see realtors as the enemy. What do you mean by that?
Well, over the course of 32 years of doing this, I've run into situations where I've had conversations with appraisers where they may have called me on the phone, wanted to ask my opinion because I've done a fair amount of complex type of work. And one of the first questions I ask, have you talked to the agents that were involved in the properties that the property you're dealing with? And the response comes back, well, no, I haven't talked to them. I don't want to talk to them. And I'm like, well, you kind of need to start there. And I guess actually the first thing is you need to go back to your engagement letter and make sure what the engagement letter says and what you're doing and why you're doing it. And then after that, get tied in with the agents and ask them and find out and interview them and find out what's going on with the project, both from the seller side and from the buyer side.
Mm.
And then that same conversation should be what you're having when you're out there confirming your sales
Yeah.
with the listing agent or the buyer's agent, whomever you're able to reach on your sales.
Yeah, just this morning, Brad, I had a conversation with an agent, and the situation was, and I'll make this story brief, but I'm doing a piece of ground that's on a steep slope, and I'm trying to find comps that are similar for the buildability issue. Can it even be accessed? Can you put a house on it? What are what's the highest and best use of this particular property? And I found a comp that, man, it just is, all about the views and how wonderful it is. And I'm looking at the topography maps, and I'm looking at the MLS. And I finally just picked up the phone and called, and it's a closed sale. So and I talked to the agent. I said, hey, talk to me about this. Why was it listed for 60,000 and sold for 40,000? He goes, oh, good luck getting a road up there. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I need. That's the comp I want. And this conversation, how often do we just pick up the phone? But you're talking about not just confirming sales, but I think you alluded to the fact that this might bring opportunities as far as business goes.
It does. And I think after you confirm data with buyer's agent and listing agent is you have a business conversation with that agent. Find out what area do they really farm? What area are they working in? What are they seeing? What's their buyer activity? What kind of foot traffic are they having? How many offers have they been getting on their listings? Just get a general feel for what's going on. And then once I'm done with that and we've shared and had a business conversation at the very end, I always ask for their permissions if it'd be okay for me to send them my contact information with my phone number, my email, my website information. And they always say yes. And I always finish it up by saying, hey, when you have that one particular question you want to bounce off a real estate appraiser's forehead, please feel free to pick up the phone and give me a call so that I can return the favor of the information that you provided to me today.
Okay, do they? So the skeptical listener is going to say, yeah, well, I take my business cards everywhere I go. I give them out to everybody, but I don't get calls.
Well, my business is about 99.98% private party. And I get phone calls from people that will tell me that so-and-so gave me your name and phone number. And I'm like going, who the heck is so-and-so? Or they'll call me and they'll say, oh, well, somebody, my real estate agent that I was talking to, and her name's Janet, and she gave me your name and number. And I'm like, okay, I have no idea who it is.
Yeah, you don't even know who to think.
Exactly. But sometimes I have to go back and research. And if I think I know who it might be, I'll reach out to them and thank them for the referral. But that's how a large portion of my business has been built. It's been referrals on estate work. It's been referrals on family law work. It's been referrals from listing agents that have called me on the phone and going, I've got a seller that thinks their castle is worth X, and it's nowhere near X. And I'm like, okay. And we have a business conversation, and I tell them to give a couple of other appraisers' names to the seller and have them let the seller make the phone calls and hire the appraiser. And I tell them right up front, do not recommend one appraiser, because if that appraiser comes in and their number comes in and it's not what the seller wants, you're going to be looked like as being the hired gun of the agent, and the deal's going to blow up. And as I always tell the agents, you don't want to have your fingerprints on the barrel of the murder weapon, so give them 2 or 3 appraisers' names.
I love it. One of the things that won't be a surprise to listeners of this program is that Dustin Harris is an introvert. I truly am. More of an ambivert. I can be both. But I'm over the years, I have been outspokenly pro vacant house, right? I would much rather go to a vacant house and do the vacant house instead of meeting, whether it be a homeowner or especially the agent. But Brad, I'll be honest with you, I've changed my mind about that over the years. And the reason is like you, my private work has come from agents. It's come from those conversations. So many appraisers, whether they be in the all-star team or the mastermind, or I'm doing private coaching, they'll come to me and say, hey, I want to build up my private business. And how do I do it? And it all comes back to the agent. It really does. How do you get in with attorneys? Well, a lot of times through the agents, right? How do you get in with homeowners? Somebody who is curious about their value. They often will come to their real estate neighbor friend, not an appraiser, and say, hey, I need to, and that will get referred to you, right? So it's about these relationships, and specifically these relationships with realtors.
Absolutely. And the one thing I do want to clarify is, earlier on in the very beginning of the program, you mentioned I was part of your all-star team. Actually, I'm not part of your all-star team. I'm just one of those people that hangs out and listens to your podcast.
I love it.
And, it's just, I find it every now and then there's going to be a takeaway from it. And I'm hoping that some of the people that are listening today will get a little bit of a takeaway that the real estate agents really aren't your enemies. Now, I know sometimes they're a pain in the backside. I got it. I deal with it every day.
Yeah.
But if you look at them as a potential source of business to help you distribute your work around multiple types of situations, as far as the work product that you do, yes, I know you're not going to do it on a 1004. Maybe you have to do it on general purpose. Maybe you have to do it on a narrative. I recognize that's all scary, but there's opportunities out there to make money and to get out of this crazy bidding thing that's been going on for quite a few years now. And in order for you to establish what you're actually worth, and to get paid the knowledge that you have, and to get paid for what you're worth. And I believe that there's an opportunity out there for appraisers, because when you look around, what are there, 40 or 50,000 active appraisers in the entire United States?
Yeah.
There's opportunities out there. Even if everybody ran to the private party side, there's still opportunities out there for everybody to be able to take on the work that comes through the door.
Amen. You said it well, Brad. Thank you for being on, my friend. Thanks for being a longtime listener. Thanks for being a friend of the program. And I encourage any listeners that if you've got something to say, reach out to me. This came about because Brad had listened to a couple episodes and simply reached out as a friend and said, hey, what about this? What about that? I invited him to be on the program. He was more than willing, and did a wonderful job. Thank you, Brad. Would love to have you back sometime, my friend.
That'd be great. I appreciate it. It's truly an honor to be here. Thank you so much, Dustin.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.